Good morning, my name is Carl Straube. Today is March 26, 2015. This is the introduction part of the video for my participating video for Lamar University in my Masters of Education class for Leadership and Administration. Today we will be conducting a leadership team meeting between 11:30 and 3:30. The people that will be in attendance for this meeting will be various elementary teachers between the grades of pre-K through 6th. We will also have our elementary principal, our assistant principal, and our curriculum director in attendance. The agenda for today is we will be reviewing benchmark data according to our December and March results. We will review the PowerPoint that is presented to the school board members. We will review needs assessment areas and progress. We will make a list of needs according to the data. We will plan our April 6th staff development. We will plan our April 13th and 14th Schlettke visit, which is one of our curriculum trainings, professional development trainings, and we will plan and prioritize for planning and staff development for this summer. The PowerPoint that we will be going over: pursuing success for every student at Three Rivers Elementary School. The 2014-15 instructional changes. We will be talking about aligned curriculum, TEACS resource system. We will be talking about monitoring student growth through profile sheets. Teachers meet weekly with intervention teachers. We will talk about assessment data used to design our instruction. And we will talk about assessments aligned K through 6, Renaissance Learning, and iStation. We will also talk about professional development, administrator training through OARS, Campus PSP, working on training with the Schlettke Center. We will also be talking about teacher training, working on the work training, in-house training and observations at Fort Sam Houston, curriculum study and planning, dialogue days held K through 12 alignment. We'll talk about instructional obstacles. We will schedule adjustments, which means we will talk about increased instructional time, increased time for writing instruction, shorten extracurricular time in 5th and 6th grade, and change curriculum-based assessment tests to benchmark tests. Curriculum adjustments needed to align with TRISD resources, and communication adjustments needed across the campus and to the campus stakeholders. We are moving out of an elementary school that is approximately 60 years old, and we will be moving into a brand new elementary school fairly short next year, at the beginning of next year. Positive instructional outcomes. We will talk about vertical alignment and our horizontal alignment, about posting our objectives in the classroom daily due to OARS training, student growth tracking taking place, students are made to schedules as needed, student input considering and planning, and positive, meaningful, horizontal instructional discussions taking place weekly. We will be talking about instructional data, Index 1. We will talk about growth measure, Index 2. And we will have a conclusion in our PowerPoint. Our students are showing growth and making progress. Legislative sessions are indicating measures will be changed requiring schools to meet either Index 1 or Index 2, but not both. Improvements in the area of curriculum alignment and challenging instructional opportunities are needed, but we are on the right track. We are looking forward to moving into our new campus. One of the other things that we can be talking about, if time allows, is we're going to be talking about a book, Never Work Harder Than Your Students, and Other Principles of Great Teaching. I am looking forward to this team leadership meeting, and I am looking forward to being an active participant in it. Thank you.
The data that we had said we were going to use to measure growth. So instead of using the grade equivalents in Renaissance Learning, we're now using the student growth percentiles. The SGPs compare our students' growth to that because of our academic peers nationwide. And so due to that, we changed our annual and quarterly goals around that report instead of the grade equivalent report. And so that was in response to our first strategy or first goal of 85% of students meeting 35 or higher on the student growth percentile. So this is data that I haven't collected yet, and I think kids are still testing, and so we'll hopefully next week I can pull those numbers and we can look at those. The second one is that 75% of students will show mastery at phase-in level 1 on STAR reading assessment. 45% of students will show mastery at the recommended level on grade level assessments in reading. We changed this. This had included math, but because we're not looking at that in math, we're looking at it in reading.
Right, I remember us talking about that.
We went down to just the reading. And so our report last quarter said that we are on track. Qualitative data shows that more teachers are posting objectives on their board and using them in planning. Regular grade level planning meetings are happening with the campus principal to discuss curriculum and instruction. Teachers are observing each other's classrooms and providing positive feedback. 54% of students in grades 3 through 6 met the phase-in level 1 on their December benchmark. 50% of students grades 3 through 6 met the recommended level on their December benchmark. And we have made changes to our annual and quarterly goals, like I mentioned before. Since you're unable to take the benchmark we gave in math and convert it to scale scores, we don't have an accurate way of gauging. So we did not want to play a guessing game with percentages and raw scores, so we decided that we're going to look only at reading data.
Why don't we have a math test that?
Because we are not using release tests because the
standard changed.
it changed so much, and they're creating a whole new test. So the test that we gave them as a benchmark was one that we purchased that someone created, but we don't know 100% if how accurate that is. And then we don't know how the state is going to create that scale score conversion piece. They haven't even done it yet. They won't do it until, we won't get that data until spring.
So, and that's just till.
So that math benchmark that we gave was a purchase test?
Yes.
Okay, and so a lot's changed with math from the last release test? Well, yeah, because the T's.
The test changed, yeah.
And
Coming
then,
down 2 years.
right. And then, what else was I going to ask? So you're just kind of
We're trying to gauge growth as much as we can, and pass fail, but we don't know what the pass fail is.
right.
We went, looking at data based off of how they performed last year, but
STAR came out. I mean,
Yeah,
But how can they can compare that? Okay, say we're supposed to be looking at how each child has gone from one year to the next, and if they're improving, whatever.
they're not going to be using that for math.
Okay, I was going to say, how do they account for that?
They're not doing that for math this year.
So that won't be something we have
And
to
also, the other part of it is that the STAR A kids don't count because STAR A is a new test.
Right, on the computer,
So,
right?
yeah.
In math or reading, or just the
In
math?
all of them, right?
All of
It
them.
will
Start
not
A
count
and
towards-
Index 2.
It doesn't count for index 2.
Oh, okay.
And I've heard that index 1 and 2 may not both be, they may,
It may be. The
One or the other.
indication is that the commissioner is leaning towards having us have to pass one or meet one or the other, not both.
right. Okay. So really what we can only look at now is like reading, writing, and science.
When will they decide that?
For
From-
growth, the only thing that we have growth data on is
Is the reading,
Because
right.
writing, they've
Right.
never tested before, and science, they will never tested before. That's
Right.
That could be good, so yes.
Right,
But you mean
But-
for pass, fail, yes.
right,
Yeah.
right.
When
Yeah,
will
you
they
can't
decide
measure
on
it
the
from.
indexes if it's one or both?
Whenever it goes through the legislature.
They can give me a
This
date, and
summer.
I can change it anyway.
Yeah,
Because when is the session usually, when is the legislature?
I don't know. I don't wanna guess that, I'd be way off.
so really all the ones that we're looking at this year as far as what we were
Right, the problem last year.
consider, why we considered
Yes.
in need was reading. We have to look at reading.
And reading was the area that showed the least amount of growth last year as well.
Yes, I remember us talking about that and really kind of being shocked by that.
But still, to me, if we've purchased a math test,
This was a test that.
no, I gave it, I saw it.
Mhm.
Cause I had those kids in there when I did it, but I'm just saying, I still think we need to be concerned that they're not
Oh,
doing well.
definitely.
Oh, definitely.
Because
Yeah.
if, even though they're not doing well, I mean, even though let's say they pass it, our goal is not just to get them to pass, because if I understood that lady right when she was here.
Yeah, me
Our
too,
goal
because
is
we were
that we
even,
didn't have enough kids that were even high that improved more, right?
Right.
yeah,
our passers,
exactly.
the kids that passed are the ones that got us.
Because we were
in the
concerned
reading.
about writing and science too.
Right,
And,
for passing.
yeah, exactly.
But
So,
for the kids that passed are the ones that did not meet the growth.
Right.
So that's where we're.
So to me, if they're not passing it, even though it's a purchase test, it's still something to go by, right?
Right, and that's why we're looking at, we are still looking at the data, it's just not what we're using to report to the state.
Oh,
Right.
okay,
Because it's
okay.
not something that they're gonna be using to look at to measure growth for
if
us.
we're doing what we should be doing to
Okay.
meet growth, yeah,
Right.
right.
Now, they're looking at a couple of things for the use of math for index one. They're looking at just having it count towards the total percentage, or they're looking at having it count, I'm sorry, I messed up, not math, star A. Star A will count towards index one as long, either as just, it'll just count, or it'll count with a what's it called?
Held harmless.
Held harmless, thank you, I always say it backwards. Held harmless, so that if it's gonna help us, they include it, if it's not gonna help us, they don't include it.
Oh,
So we're not sure
Huh.
how that star A piece is gonna,
and that's for everything,
fall.
Every subject,
Every subject.
every subject?
that should help some.
There's not a cap on giving index one, on it, giving star A, like there had been on star M and star O, because it is the exact same test as star A, as regular, star A is the exact same test as regular star. And the passing rate, all that stuff is exactly the same.
There's no field questions.
That's
The
the only
field,
difference.
the length is different.
Yeah, the field questions are out and you have the accountability, the accommodations built in. I cannot talk today, I'm sorry.
The accommodation to the computer.
Right,
Mhm.
so that it's actually read to them.
Yeah.
I got a question. So our biggest obstacle was from last year's testing was index 2 math, correct?
Reading and math.
Reading and math, but math is the one we really got, and it was the 4th grade, right, the not showed enough improvement.
But it's
Fourth
up there
grade
too.
struggled the most, I think, last year, yes,
Yes, overall, I think.
overall.
Mm-hmm.
And, they had, I think, the least amount of improvement in math, but overall, reading,
This was lower than our math percentages.
And we don't know if we're gonna be accomplished higher than that or not, because the legislature and the testing has changed and the accountability.
in terms of the math piece, yes.
Is there a certain range that they use? Like, say the passing number was 44% last year. Can they only go above that so many, or can they? It just depends. They can do whatever they want to do. Yeah. I was just wondering if there was some type of range.
There's reasoning behind there.
Yeah,
If there's
right.
a way to figure it out, yeah.
So how do we determine growth then, if the test has changed and stuff like
Well,
that?
we're
For
not
math, we
determining
can't.
growth on reading.
And they're not
Because
gonna,
reading hasn't changed.
they're not gonna.
So we can in math.
We can't.
Right.
But in reading
Not-
we can, and
But
reading-
with the math, we can, like Tracy was saying, we are still concerned if they're if they're passing the test or not.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is a new test and it is new curriculum, we
Right.
still want to make sure that they are meeting the expectations for math.
So, to explain it, do y'all
So,
want me to explain
so the game has
index
changed.
It's always changing. I'm gonna scoot in. So, Here's what we do to determine growth for index 2. Had this nice little chart. Granted, I don't know if it's going to change for this year, but this was last year's. And so you determine, okay, so the kids that took, that are going to take grade 6 reading this year and took grade 5 reading last year, if they met, if they passed or they met at level 2, they have to get 47 more scale score points in order to meet growth. To exceed growth, it's 51. I'm sorry. I take that back. If they met at level 3, it's an additional 51 points to meet. If they score 136 more points on their scale score, then they have exceeded it, and they count twice for us into the average, the formula. And then a kid that only misses between 46 and 48 is considered the top score range, and it counts as meeting growth.
So, and that's index 1?
2.
Index 2.
Yes. So then what they do is they take all students that took the test, and they say, okay, so there's 126 students that took the test, 57 met or exceeded, and 13 exceeded, and then they find the percentage of those two, and they add them up, and they're calling that the weighted progress rate. And then they say, okay, now let's look just at the Hispanic students. So there were 74 Hispanic students, and they do that same process here, and the same thing with white students, do the same process here, and then they total them up, and they divide it by 600, because they're saying the max that you could get at in all 3 areas would be 200 each. So okay, and then they come up with a number. Last year it was this number and this number, total number, and we got 31, and we had to have 33.
Yes, I know. It was all
Okay, so this year it'll only be reading, and the state still doesn't know exactly what that number is that we're shooting for, that magic number. They don't know if it's going to be within the 5 percentile range of all campuses based on last year's data, or on the new data that we haven't seen yet. They also don't know what they're going to set index 1 at, whether it's going to be at 60 or if it's going to be at 5% based on all schools' data from this year. It's still up in the air.
Whether it's 60% of our kids passing.
No, not yeah, well, yeah.
That's what I was
essentially.
going to ask. when
Well,
you
they
said that
don't say 60% passing.
Right.
They say
60
60 points.
points.
It's just the absolute value of.
what it could be. Right.
But yeah,
Based
Wow.
on previous years, what kind of data are we looking at before they make up their mind? If it happens quick or later?
I have no idea. I think a lot of it has to do, honestly, with just political maneuvering in the background.
It's ridiculous, but it is what it
I
is.
think they're going to wait to see how kids perform, and then
Yeah, like they have since STAR started, basically.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why that goes back to us not knowing for sure how the benchmarks are predicting how we're doing, and we're going as much, if not more, off of the Renaissance learning, hoping that our kids are making growth with their grade equivalent to get their reading levels up. So that's why if we figure if the kids are reading higher, then they should be being more successful on the test. So,
Yeah, definitely.
So, do we need to, on the next plan that's due in April, do we need to update any of the strategies, or do you want to talk about that now?
we can
or
talk about the strategies that we have.
later.
Huh.
So the accountability system is a huge formula that Jessica understands it, thank goodness, because I don't. So she understands
Very
So-
complicated.
So
If we're
frustrating.
looking at-
together.
Yeah. If we're looking at reading, like the reading benchmark, this info y'all have here, like the 63% say in 3rd grade,
grab my papers
would that be,
by accident?
so we're saying like that wouldn't, 63%,
That's not really 63% passing, or
No,
what
it
is that?
is, yeah.
It is.
63% of the kids pass.
at what
And
rate? Like what?
At the,
50,
at
the
the,
From last year?
It
But
varies
the recommended level.
based on last year, and it varies by grade level.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
And
The
they're
third
on,
grade I read
they're
at
on target
57.
to meet the standard,
Okay.
right?
And that's that they took last year's release
and that's
test.
based on
53.
these numbers from last year.
Yeah.
So 3rd grade,
So last year in
Not
3rd grade,
57.
60% of our kids passed the
and
same
actually,
test
I don't look at the percent
in
passing.
April. And so far
Oh,
this
this is
year,
scale
63% of our kids passed in February. They're
Right.
taking the same test.
Yeah, but I think better on percents like that than scale score. Me
Right.
personally.
Right.
But I know that they are based on a scale
Yes.
score. So like fourth grade, what was their percent passing,
Last
like
year.
reading?
43.
Last year or?
Last year, okay, third grade.
This is
No, I
53.
mean, what
This
was
is
the passing
53.
standard? I'm sorry.
This is 53, this is
Oh, the passing
52.
standard for fourth
Okay.
grade last
For
year?
what they had to take.
52.
For their reading,
52.
Yeah.
52.
That's
52
third
for them
grade?
and 53.
Fourth.
53 is third grade
Okay.
and 52 is fourth grade.
And 54 is fifth and 52 is sixth.
Nancy and Hayden.
Passing standard. And what was the sixth?
What?
52.
Hopefully it stays within that realm.
It's supposed to, right?
It's supposed to say that. It's supposed to say.
Yeah, I mean, the new phases will not be in effect until
Unless
next
they
year.
change it.
But again, that will change again.
Right, because if you're looking even at our math, I know we're saying we don't really need to focus on this as much, but
Not that we
No,
don't
we
need to
do.
focus on it, that's not it. It's just that we don't have the data.
because if you're saying
To get something
13% pass,
consistent,
like at a 50 or 40% passing rate, that's like an emergency type of
I know.
situation.
Were those run, but was that the percentage at 70%?
No.
It was at the,
That was at the,
State.
that was at last year
But still,
in math.
this was a
Okay.
February test. What are we doing to intervene now?
For math?
Yeah.
Ms. Carlson was telling me yesterday that she feels like that the kids are doing better than what this test showed, and the reason why is because of what they're doing in class every day, and that she can see that they've grown. What the kids are actually doing in class, she thinks, is better than what these scores show. And she said that she's doing the after-school tutoring.
Because what are
but
their
she's
grades like
also-
in class? I mean,
They're
they're okay. They're not.
they're not like failing like.
no, and I'll
It
say
was a
So
lot-
is
it was
like
a
the
test,
curriculum
too.
not on board with what their expectations are on the test?
Well, that's what
Well,
we're
that's
saying, the test that we
this
got,
particular test.
this particular
is
benchmark
what we're
that
not
we
sure
purchased, again, it was our best guess at what the test is gonna be.
Right.
Looking at it, having Jace brought it home and I looked at it, I'm thinking it's harder than what the test
We
is
thought,
gonna
yeah,
be.
we thought it was harder. to
And
do.
I'm also thinking that the state is gonna push those percentage passing points down.
But you know what? I gave that test,
Uh-huh.
and because that was one that I could look over
Right.
their shoulders and look at.
Mhm.
Do you know what the fourth grade kids could not do? Add and subtract 2 and 3 digit numbers.
We have a lot of.
Every one of those kids that I had,
They need intervention. Some.
They
And
were-
carrying and borrowing and all
they
of that.
could not do it. And second grade is doing that now.
Yeah.
So, like I had a little boy, he put, I remember it because it was like 53 minus 18. And he looked at me and he said, "What do I do? I can't have 3 and take 8 away." I said, "What do you do?" I mean, on this test, I even kind of gave them,
Right.
you
right.
know, clues because I felt like,
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like it's better,
Yeah.
you know. And he started drawing all these pictures. Never could do it. And I saw several of
That
them.
would take the whole test to draw the picture
Right.
out.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
several of them that could not add and subtract 2
That's
and
not
3 digit
good.
numbers. And I was like, because I'm doing that in tutorials in second grade right
Do you
now.
have the kids that are,
I had the kids that the test is read to, but that's all.
they're not the ones that will be taking A?
No. Well, I don't.
Some.
Even
she
if
had
they
some.
are, even if they're the ones taking A, they still got to have to know how.
Yes, they do. That's right.
They do.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
I had the kids
And these
that
these
they could get
percentages
the,
have
have it read
have our
to
kids
them.
that are taking A in them also.
And
And
some
science
of
and-
them
But
tried
you
to
know
go-
what, and I think too what it is, I mean, it's, you know, with just like Courtney and what you're talking about, really I think it's like the addition, maybe even the subtraction of the 2 and 3 digit numbers. It was really just the fact about not lining them up.
Yes,
That's what-
exactly.
that's
That's
what-
the first
that's
thing you.
And
Yeah.
that's what Miss Orsak
Gotta
said,
go to the end.
and that's
Yeah.
where she just blew it. But Miss
That's a
Orsak,
lot- that's all
but
of
Miss
them, though.
Orsak was able to catch that during,
If
you know, intervention
Uh-huh.
and to help her. And so sometimes
But-
it's just
No, I
having
know
a
we
smaller
don't-
group to help them.
But
We're not the
I'm-
idea of doing small groups and having students rotate through small groups. I don't know if
I think that that's what needs to happen.
I mean, I
I
know that's
think-
what you're
I
doing
think
in
so,
writing, and I know everybody's but I don't know I know Miss Crossland right now is reviewing going over the financial literacy, and then she's going to start her, because she hadn't covered that yet, and then she's doing her spiral review starting next week to the test. So with
But the ones
actual
that I
small
had,
groups.
I specifically asked in that class. I said, who goes to Miss Orsack in here? Because I wanted to see who was using their strategies
Right.
and who weren't.
Mhm.
And 2 of my kids out of 7 that I had that day went to Miss Orsack.
Mhm.
And they were not the 2. One of them was one that goes to her. The other ones that couldn't add and subtract don't go to her.
So
So
they're not getting it.
they're not understanding it or something, you know. I mean,
I just know that whenever we have like an OEYP, and I know that's probably like bad words to y'all, but we had other teachers that buddied up with us, and if say we weren't quite like Mr. Jambers was always worked with me, and he was perfect for those students. I mean, it gave them another teacher in front of them. It gave them a chance to see how somebody else did something, and some of the times his kids did better than mine on the test. I mean, you know, it was just, it gave that chance for that. I don't know whether y'all would consider something like that again.
Well, I
I
know
think
Miss
we need to go
Crosland
back.
sent
But-
out the letter for tutoring on yesterday or
Because now's the time we would be hitting
and
it
so
hard.
the tutoring's starting, and
Like,
she's doing
if
it
you had
Tuesdays and
OEYP,
Thursdays after school.
It was till
but
5.
see, we started it in January.
Yes, you had 12 weeks of it, and it
Yeah,
was just
and it
one
was
day
intense.
a week.
And if
but
those kids weren't passing those benchmarks, and I mean if they weren't even, not just not failing them, if they
Right.
were in the 70s, they stayed.
that's right. It was
Because
good.
Miss
Everybody
Tina
would have been in
stood at the end of
OEYP
the
back then.
sidewalk and turned them right around. They
That's
didn't have
right.
a choice.
That's
and
right.
I know people
Miss
say it doesn't
Dice,
work.
she checked our classes.
Mhm.
She made sure they were learning, and we didn't have any of this that it's too long in the day. My kids never complained. I had very few who
Well,
complained.
they got a
about
break because I did it.
Yes.
I did it for 5 years after school for Miss T or longer.
To
And
me,
then
this
for
is
Miss,
all concerning. I don't care if it counts for what.
Well, no, it does count.
The
It's
only-
going to count for us under Index 1.
Exactly, and the only one that even looks like they're ready is, I mean, I'm not trying to be ugly, but the way we used to do it at 63 was iffy, 83 was good. But the rest of this, I'm sorry. And when you are in February and you're looking at tests in March and April,
And this test was
I don't know. What
administered
can I
when?
do? I mean, I'm
I
just
mean,
like,
I'm willing to do it too.
I would
'cause
be doing
stayed after
OEYP
school,
right
too.
now, I guarantee you. If there was a 4th grade math that, if Miss Crossland needed me to do it, I would stay till 5 on Thursdays. And it's not to earn $30. It's to help our
Because
school.
$30 doesn't even cover your time. Really.
No, absolutely not. It would be to help our school because this is embarrassing. It's very embarrassing.
I just think that if we couldn't do it where it was gonna be
And sometimes
an
I feel like I
OEYP
can't help.
where
But
we
if I had
couldn't do it
OEYP, I
after
could.
school, at least that we can get these kids into smaller groups. And maybe that if we had to get substitutes or aides to cover, you know, like maybe Tracy's class, but I mean, I'm just.
Yeah,
Because
because I
if
feel
we
like,
could-
hey,
Because then that goes into, you know, transportation as well, and that just, you know, kind of adds with that.
but you know what? We go the extra mile. If you're in this type of situation and you see this is happening, you say, we're going to go the extra mile like we used to.
Well, and
I mean,
I
No, and
also
I agree
think-
with
I
that.
don't
I'm just
think
saying, if we
parents
can't
should
do
have a
that, we
choice.
need to,
Right,
we need to
right,
do
right.
I mean,
something.
if their
Right.
kids are failing and they don't want their kids staying after school, I think Joanne and them used to make them sign something that said, my child can't stay after school regardless of the fact that he's failing his benchmarks. Because I'm just going to say, with the kids that I have, they're not taking this stuff serious.
Right. And
I
that's
have
what
What I
said.
saw last
them
year testing, they weren't
When
either.
I got these
Mm-mm.
scores, I told Audra and Jessica both. I said, I feel like I don't understand where the connection is not happening. Where the kids are learning this, doing this, and then carrying over to the test. It's like a total disconnect from, oh, I'm learning this to do this here. You know, just that whole process. And I don't understand how to, you know, where to nip that in the bud and to help fill in that gap. Because like, you can see it's not happening. You can see they're doing stuff in class. The teacher's working. Kids are working.
Oh yeah, I'm not
but
saying
they're
the teacher's not
not-
teaching
oh, yeah.
But
No.
they're
at all.
not-
But
the
this is
connection
concerning.
is not-
Whether
right,
it's-
It is very concerning, and I think that one of the issues that we did have, I mean, at least for one grade level, was that one of our teachers, you know, certified teachers was gone, you know, and it was
Mhm.
health reasons, and that was like, you know, the whole year, and it was different, you know, substitutes that we were having
Well,
to
we
come
can
in.
make everything. That's when y'all. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. But if if the certified teacher's not there,
Well, and I think that that's what happened, is
I
that then
mean-
we got somebody who was a
Hello,
retired
how are
teacher who
you?
was certified, but
Right.
at that time, it was
Right.
like these poor kids.
well, I don't
know
know.
where it is.
Like I said, I wouldn't mind helping if we still had OEYP. I guarantee you, I'd have volunteered.
Well, and
We'd
we
be
can
doing
talk
it right
to
now.
Kathy and Clarissa. I mean, they're for third and fourth grade because I know the sixth grade are stronger, but the third and fourth grade,
Yeah.
and fifth grade also. Of course, the fifth grade reading test is Monday.
I think we-
Getting them
I'm-
this year is
so
just
what do
getting
you
them where
think?
they need to be.
I'm
Because
just
they
gonna
were
say
so
this.
low when they
Right.
came to us,
Right.
so.
I think that we've done this long enough to try
do it right.
something different. And obviously, it's not working.
Two, I don't think
Taking
they
away
have
the
the
90
fear.
minutes was a bad idea. I'm sorry. I've taught it. I know what you need 90 minutes. Giving teachers more than one test, if you don't have to, is the optimal thing to do. Not to give them more than one test. That's a lot to prepare for. If you have two tests and you're trying to prepare for both, I don't care if they're both math or both reading, it's still hard. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think
because-
we're still not. I mean, we still have time to, like you said, to do the after-school tutoring and to get everything structured. I mean, to since we're seeing what's going on during the class in the classroom and the kids are still not making the connection,
Right.
that we still have time to plan. And like I said, Ms. Crossland is doing after-school tutoring, but we can talk to her about who's coming and to get on the. I think to like you said, the accountability of making sure the kids are there. Making sure that they're in the tutoring and following directions and
Right.
listening, and that the parents are aware of all of it. So,
Because anybody can play the blame game. It's not anybody's fault, but
right,
you have to regroup. You have to revamp and say,
right. And I think regrouping the way we did regroup this year helped, and moving our stronger teachers to third and fourth grade, and moving people around like that. But from here on out to the test, we still have some regroup, and that's why we want y'all here is because we can sit around and talk about what we think the problem
Right.
is, but we need everybody's input to decide
Right.
for sure.
and that's kind of how I am right now because I'm not up enough on everything and I don't know what's been going on. So I really don't have an opinion to say because I'm not one of these grades. And that's why I'm not saying anything bad about the teachers or really admin, but something's got to be different. Something's
Exactly.
got to change.
Right.
I mean, this is.
Yeah,
I
and we
think-
agree.
Well,
That's
I mean,
why
and we
we're-
agree, and then that's,
Yeah.
I mean, we wanna make these changes and do what we need to do to get to where we need to be.
The teacher restructure that we did earlier in the year, was that about 12 weeks ago, 18 weeks ago, something like that?
No, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
schedule change to the hour classes.
Yes, where like Miss
And
Crossland
moving
took
to-
over all the math and Miss.
Well, no, that was at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Oh, you mean to change her to writing?
January.
That was in December. Yeah, January.
How do we
December.
think that's going?
I think separating the reading from the writing has
New
been a big
schedule?
help.
Oh, yeah.
But
It
I
has
think
helped from the beginning of the year.
the lab classes did not work. I'll be the first one to say it. They did not work. And so they, so now we.
It's nice having one person just in the computer lab though, that way
Yes.
the kids are getting it every day.
Yes, and the kids on iStation,
And I
I
think
think
that
has
right
helped.
there, if we would have had that at the beginning, it would have helped improve a little bit more, but we
Right.
didn't know that until.
I think you could
Right.
still do that where you have a lab. We used to do that.
Right.
We had Miss Dirks in the lab, which you could probably coordinate that with more. But then when our kids went to the lab, it was the ones who were making the grade, and we kept the ones who needed
Right.
the regular
Because
teacher.
it took out of your math time, right?
Right, which
the
I never
kids
wanted to
who-
give time on that, but
No, but you kept the kids who you needed to work with, and so it was part of the math time. It wasn't.
and I was
it wasn't in
still the
addition
instructor.
to.
Right, right.
So that is a big difference. And I like Miss Powell has done a great job in iStation, and I think that she's really tracking the kids and doing the intervention lessons that go along with the program. And so I think that's going well. That was a good change. But the yes, you're right. The initial lab classes were. That was
Um,
And even just going from 47 minutes to an hour
Oh, yeah.
is a big difference, so.
I know when I've talked with Miss Crossland about the project that I'm doing with the mastery teaching and reteaching, retesting, the one thing that she says that has worked well for her is the students aren't getting their math facts.
Right.
That's the biggest problem right now, and that's the one thing that she does go back and reteach, retest,
Correct.
retest, is that part of it.
And she's dealing with 2 tests.
Yeah.
And I know we've had
second grade's doing it too. I mean, second grade is, cause that's part of what, I mean, they're doing those skill speed tests too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing for homework too.
Yeah.
That's helped.
I think though, when we quit talking about the STAR or the TAPS test, I
last
think
year.
it took the fear out of, the kids have no fear.
I know.
We've taken everything that we were, conscientious about, and we've kind of said, don't be conscientious about it. And in a way that we've kind of, I'm just gonna say, we took God out of the school, so nobody fears anything anymore. We can't say star or tax anymore, so, up until just recently. So, no, I don't want a child crying in my class about the STAR test, but at the same time, I want them coming in there being apprehensive about it,
Well,
because they need to know
To
that
be
this
prepared,
is important.
yeah.
You know?
my take on it is that I don't want any kids to fear that test. I want them to go in there knowing they got it.
Well, but by that I mean they need to work to show they have it.
Right, but I think too, I think if you spin it in a positive light, and I think that's.
Because I can talk about it in class. I bring it up all the
Yeah.
time with them in class, but at the same time, it's like, okay, guys, y'all know y'all have to take it. It's reality. So we're in a
Right.
positive situation, but not. I'm
We've
not
got that
sitting
light
there
test
telling them,
coming
oh
up,
my
and I
God,
mean,
you
that
have
comes
to test. You know, if you don't pass it, you're not going to pass
Right.
on. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they're going to trick you. Y'all know y'all have to read it. Y'all know they have to do something about it.
I'm about playing up their sense of pride and saying, okay,
Exactly.
on Monday, it's your chance to show the state of Texas how awesome the fourth graders in Three Rivers, Texas are.
Right.
You need to sit down. You show them how awesome you are.
Well, and think of how good it makes them feel when they pass or they are level
Right.
3. I mean, that
right.
makes them all that more ready for the next year too, in their minds.
Okay, and just to bring you up to date, we were just reviewing what we shared with them, the report that we turned in February, and then, we started looking at our benchmark data. And so with all of this, you can keep talking, but I'm gonna go ahead and start writing a needs assessment, a list of all of our needs like we did to begin with this process. And then I want to end this meeting with plans for staff development and where y'all think we should go with that. Since, just in case something happens in April and May, and we'll get back together, but I want to have a better idea of where we should go with our staff development and what type of improvements we need to make. So if I emailed you the PowerPoint that I gave the school board meeting.
Remember that?
Sure. And then,
Did you
but
email
like
that
you
to
said,
that?
we were just reviewing our benchmark data.
What?
That we had.
What's your overall?
Did we get that
Was it an
PowerPoint today?
attachment?
I sent it,
It was the attachment.
Yes, I saw that.
with the Thursday memo, but it's
I've
real
seen that.
general.
Oh, yeah,
And,
it was the Thursday
I mean,
meeting.
we'll just
Thursday
click
memo.
through it quickly.
Here.
I've seen
I
that.
sent that out, yes. Okay.
And then if y'all
I didn't
have
print it out,
questions for if we can go back to our data, I think that's the most important, like I was saying, and make a list of our needs and where we want to go from here. So, I reviewed the changes that we had made this year and talked about, adding in our aligned curriculum, adding in our assessment data, along with the aligned curriculum with the Teach Resource System. That the teachers review the standards weekly, and I'm not going to read all of it to you because y'all pretty much are aware of everything. I adding in the assessments and monitoring students, meetings held each 6 weeks for planning, and that started, of course, with the K-12 dialogue days, but now it's gone to the 4th and 5th 6 weeks. It's just worked out for during our staff development time to do just our campus, and so hopefully at the end of the year we'll have another time that we can meet with K-12. And teachers using the curriculum resources to verify objective as they are taught. And that's basically comparing the curriculum to the textbooks and then making sure that
Right,
we're
what we're
aligned
talking
with
about.
the standards. Okay. Monitoring student growth, and that's the profile sheets that we've added this year, going home with their through 6th grade students. And then also I think that the most important part that y'all are doing is that the teachers meet with the intervention teachers that's almost on a daily basis, I think, that y'all talk to the intervention teachers and who needs to be going to intervention. Assessment data that y'all are using, we're using our scores to decide where to go with our instruction, and assessments aligned K to 6th grade, and that's that we now have a unified that we're using Renaissance Learning K to 6th grade, whereas before it was, we're going to use this, and it wasn't an aligned assessment that we actually used for instruction. Okay.
Let me just, keep going.
Okay, this is just the changes we've done with staff development.
What I was
this year.
gonna say, and those instructional changes are very aggressive, but very great, but very, you had to have them. I mean,
Right.
it had, so it's very aggressive for 1 year, but yet the fact that you've got it underway and it's going, and I've been talking with her, I mean, I'm just very pleased that I know it's hard work, but it's necessary hard work. And I applaud y'all for being aggressive in some of those instructional changes. And yes, there's little bumps in the road. There will be, but figuring those out, plowing through them, fixing whatever, I've just
And that's what
just here. I mean, when I even see them written down for this presentation, it is very aggressive, but you don't want to be in reconstitution next year. And I didn't realize that it happened so quickly, and I'm with another district, and it happened so quickly. So aggressive, necessary, but you can manage them. I mean, it's hard work. There's no doubt about it. It's hard work. It's not what everybody's been used to. But, again, just applaud y'all for doing those things and, helping to lead your school through this. And being a role model is just so important. So, okay.
And that's what I reiterated to the school board, was that these were all things that did not happen last year. We did not have those things in place last year.
Are we talking about like just the
list that was up there just
the
now.
curriculum?
No, but are we
and
talking
the-
about like the star grades, or are we talking about like school wide, or
What do you mean?
Just
Oh,
everything
like-
in general.
no? I'm saying like last year. I mean, some of us listed objectives and we're going by the curriculum. I mean, were they not doing that in like
Right.
star grades?
Well, you're making sure that they understand it also. Sometimes people wrote it.
But no, they weren't.
Really, but no, they weren't.
Okay.
So more of a unified approach is
Correct.
what there's always little,
Well, and the other,
individual
I think one
pockets,
of our
but getting
biggest
that to
mistakes
be-
last year was not ensuring the unified assessments and the across the board
Right.
benchmarks.
That's what I would say. Yes.
Because
Right.
third grade gave this test, and fourth grade gave this test, and fifth grade gave that test, and there was no
Exactly.
way of showing
right.
any consistency
that makes sense.
or any. I mean, like here we know we gave the release test. This is how they did, etc. Last year it was, well, I'm giving this release test and I'm giving that release test, and I nodded and
It's
went
more
along
of a
with it. And so
systematic
it was it was
movement
my
that does
Yes, I
eventually bring
understand that.
everybody on board.
Right.
Where there were probably pockets of people.
Exactly.
But it's getting the whole school
Exactly.
to understand and see it, and that's what.
But you know what, last year was the year we moved, right? I mean, everybody moved,
So we had in sixth grade.
and it was like chaos because nothing worked the first 6 weeks of school.
Well, it's just been
Computers,
so
and
much.
It was nuts,
Yeah.
you know? And so
Yeah, there
there-
is
change.
It was
Yeah.
so much change in 1 year. It
Yeah.
seemed like that it was hard for the kids, it was hard for the teachers, it was kind of hard for everybody.
And
Couldn't
like
do
last
announcements.
year,
It was
Yeah,
just
and
off
I
we
mean,
couldn't have announcements.
yeah,
and
and all of the facilities. But then in addition, I mean, our kids got tough last year with all of our behavior kids that came in kindergarten that we
Yes.
were not prepared for. And thank goodness Coach Straube's here, so.
I guess it was my first year on this campus, but one of the things that I've noticed is the alignment of the curriculum, the instruction strategies that have been put into place, and then I guess the biggest part that I'm real pleased with so far is assessing kids on a daily basis and finding out what they need and getting back to them. I mean, the intervention, I'm impressed with the interventions that are going on and things, and serving the lower echelon of the kids that we have. I think that's pretty impressive as far as that goes. Now, I see it at below the fourth grade level, third grade level more, because I'm involved with that more.
Right, you are.
But I see that more, but there's been a lot of changes, like you were talking about, and I see it. I see them, and yeah, there is bumps in the roads, and we're working through them.
Yeah, and you have to.
And then this is just all of the administrator help that we've had in the teacher training and the things that the teachers have added this year. And then instructional obstacles. Dr. Orbach wanted to make sure that I included our problems that we've had along the way and not just make it all hunky-dory, because we have had several problems. Scheduling was, of course, our biggest obstacle, like we discussed. It didn't work out which we had thought about. We had hoped the way it would work, but that's okay. You know, we adjusted it as we went. Curriculum adjustments have been made. Like I said, you know, that we've changed timelines and, you know, adjusted to make sure that we're aligned to our resources. And then the communication adjustments I talked about, because if you'll recall, in addition to our benchmarks and in addition to our required improvement in STAR data, we also talked about communication still needing to be improved. And I talked about the improvements that we made, but I also talked about that our need for communicating out to our stakeholders and to our parents and trying to get them, you know, more included. And then also how being under one roof will make a big difference with that as well, as far as, improving communication. Positive instructional changes or outcomes, I think we've had good quality vertical alignment discussions that did not take place last year. Our objectives being posted daily, due to the ORS training, tracking our student growth and the students making progress. Adjustments being made to the schedule instead of just saying, no, we're gonna stick with the schedule because it's the schedule, but we've made the adjustments as much as we possibly could. Student input considered in planning, and that's mainly in the 5th and 6th grade. They've been visiting a lot with the kids and what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and more of the interaction going on. And then, of course, the horizontal instructional discussions taking place, where the teachers, where y'all are meeting with your grades and making sure that everybody's on the same page. And then this was the data that we presented. These are the numbers that Jessica developed if you take the whole campus as a conglomerate and add up all of the passing scores. So as you can see with our December benchmark, as far as passing in Index 1, we had 32 points. In February benchmark, we had 40, and last year we had 65 under Index 1. But like we said, the 32 to 40 was with the month and a half of instruction, and then we're hoping, with the next month and a half of instruction that we'll get up to where we were last year, if not higher. And then the growth measure, last year for our 2014 data at the bottom, we had 45% of our students met growth, 10% exceeded growth, and according to our February data, this was in April, of course. In February, we had 41% of our students, and this is just in reading, 41% of our students met the reading growth measure and 9% exceeded for the year. So that's why we said we think we're on the right track, but we still have, of course, more to go. And also the 45 and 10 last year included math. That was with all of our growth measure together. This is reading only. The 41% is reading only of students who have met growth. So, in conclusion, we are making progress. We had talked about the legislative sessions are indicating so far Index 1 or 2, but not both. Improvements in the area of curriculum are still needed, but I think we're on the right track. And that, like I said, I made sure the board knew we were going to be looking forward to it again. So I said it as nicely as possible.
So they're saying that you might not have to meet both this year?
Yes.
That's everything that they're seeing with everything that's being presented, all of the bills being presented shows that it's 1 or 2, but not both.
Oh, really?
This is one. Hello?
For reading too?
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah, for all of the bills being presented. So.
I go to some training next week.
Oh, good. Maybe you can give us, see what's
It's
going on.
actually almost around the 20th. Kind of almost too late.
So, if y'all will, reviewing the PowerPoint. Okay, if y'all want to go back to the benchmark data, the numbers that we were talking about a while ago, and then I think Jessica explained where we are with our Index 2 calculations.
I don't think I should show them that one.
Okay, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, I will.
What do I have written right there on your
I had a question when we were talking about interventions and stuff. I know the change we made earlier in the year was we went
He's
from
supposed to be at lunch right now.
a lot of Excel math to Go math. How do we feel that's going?
Look on his packet.
Go math has been good for kindergarten, but I can't speak for other grade levels.
I think,
I think they're learning a lot from
Are
it.
you sitting at your desk? Okay, you know your full time.
I guess in my,
it was,
Well, that didn't work.
Excel and Go Math both are national, were created for the nation and forced to fit into Texas. So
But
there's some
Excel
things
is
in there that
not-
we have to- Excel did not have the, Excel was more of the basic fact type of thing. It
Well,
didn't have stuff-
because there were like, after the new TEKS came in, there were like 70-something lessons that, out of the Excel, 150-something that weren't
They weren't
even
even-
something that we had to know by the end of kindergarten. So that's why I switched to Go Math,
Yes.
because why waste my time with 70-something lessons?
Go Math has some strong thinking skills.
Yes,
and,
it does. It does.
Yes,
from
it
what
does.
I've seen with the second grade, because
Yeah.
You know, I usually try to get their books and look at the
Right.
ones for my
Yes, it's
intervention
making them
kids,
think.
and it makes
Yes.
them
Yes,
think.
it makes
Yes.
them
They really
my,
have to
my only
reason.
concern
You can
is
tell
that
it's-
it
For the STAR test.
I'm concerned it's giving them too many strategies, too many ways to find a multiplication answer or
See, I don't know.
I
I can't
agree
speak
with
for
that.
the testing.
It does
It's
break
too
second
many.
grade
There's
too.
no. I mean, and it's weird ways. Where I can see if I don't get it this way, then let's look at it this way. But
That's just part of the new philosophy, that there's
Yeah,
so many ways to solve a
exactly.
problem.
It's
That's
And
right.
we have a hard time undoing our
You're right.
thoughts,
You're
but
right.
it's
Yeah.
that it makes kids really think
It does.
mathematically. When, it's not trying to teach them, like we try to teach them steps, like multiply, do this, do that, and it's trying to get more at what does
A global
multiplication mean. And so if you truly understand the concept of multiplication, you can use all kind of pathways to sometimes solve a problem.
Exactly.
Very hard for us to
I
undo,
can also
but that's
pick up
that
a
thinking.
calculator.
You can,
But
you
she's
can when you get an eighth grade.
She's right. She's right because like
I'm not saying that it's easy to swallow, but that's
no,
just where math
that's
is going.
exactly
But
right.
do you think it's
It is
because
what it is.
Is that
Because that's problem solving.
is that
It
what-
is.
Because in life, you don't always
Right.
have to do something the same
Right.
way somebody else, and you can
Right.
still get to the same answer. And so it's all built upon that concept of problem
But
solving.
Well,
I
like
see
even in
with my
kindergarten.
kids, the intervention kids, that giving them so many ways confuses
I'm gonna go
them.
make sure to see.
I mean,
But she's right. That's what it's gone to though.
Yeah.
We
But
can't help
I'm
that.
not saying, and you can pick and choose, and like she said, maybe teach sometimes two ways and
Right.
leave that third and fourth way out until you see a kid just still in getting it.
that's what I've
Right.
done. I've told them to go back to doing it the way we did it the first time, and then if we can get it right that way, then we'll go on and try.
Well,
it.
going back to bumps in the road,
So it'll be up there. I can.
one of the things with the bumps in the roads, I remember the first time I gave the Go Math test at the beginning of the year. To me, we were doing a lot of Excel at the beginning of the year, and then we're
Switch.
doing the transition. And when I gave that first Go Math test, I had a headache. I mean, it seemed like I had to explain everything, and I got to the point to where it's like I just started teaching instead of reading the question, and so I ended up giving a test and almost instructing at the same time. And by the time the thing was over, I had a headache.
yeah.
So that's where the bumps in the roads come. The other thing that I thought it was almost the end of year course tests that I was given in the first 6 weeks or something, to where it was way above the heads, and I think you remember too, right, Ms.
It was
Graves?
hard.
That first one. Now, the second and third administration that we've had of it
It's
was
been-
easier and easier and easier,
Yeah,
but
and was the first one like a diagnostic pretest to see what all they knew?
might have been.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Because that's what some of the books are doing now too, and so it's just to get a feel, and it's not, we're so programmed that we give a test, and then we re-explain every question that they missed, and some of them aren't built on that philosophy. It's just like, get a feel for where they are, and then you make notes. They didn't get this, because you're gonna come, it's gonna recycle, and you're gonna come back to it. But I'd have to look at the
The one I was given was,
philosophy of the books, but I know the Pearson book was that way, and I think Go Math is very similar to it. Can't think of the word for Pearson Math. Envision.
the one I
And I
gave
think Go
was,
Math's very similar, and it's just built upon, sometimes you test them and you find out, but you don't, expect them to have gotten everything on that, they don't really always call it a pre or diagnostic, but it is sort of. You're making notes where their weaknesses are.
yeah, the one I gave was second grade
Oh,
test, and they had some changes they only had to go up to 999, and that changed to go to 1200.
That's part of the new teaks,
Yeah.
though, from last year's probably Excel book or whatever y'all were using to the new one.
Well, we found out that we don't know is after taking that test. We found out
Found
a
out
lot
too
of-
much that you didn't know, no.
Even like Go Math with kindergarten, say you had 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, well, how many altogether? It's usually just 4. But like, they'll give you multiple choice like it would on a STAR test, and you have to choose one of the bubbles.
Yeah.
It introduces them to bubbling, and it might say 4 equals 2 plus 2. It switched it around on the number sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, even our kindergartners have to look at it a different way.
Right.
So,
You know,
And that's just because they've learned that I want to say we made pretty good mathematicians, but the old way is we teach a method, and we say do this, and kids don't really understand why they're doing
Right,
anything.
right.
And we just drill it into their head, step,
Exactly.
step, step, and they're finding that the kids don't really understand anything mathematically, and that's why
Right.
their learning begins to, it might work through about fourth grade, fifth, maybe, but then it just begins to drop off and they get to algebra and even other, because they don't have any thinking patterns about math, because they don't really understand it. And so it's hard, because we didn't grow up wanting to teach that way. You know, we didn't learn that way, and they don't, but, you know, mathematically, we're still behind in the world, so whatever we've done, even though we all felt like we learned math really strong, I mean, you know, I'm older than y'all, but still, as a nation, we're still not strong mathematically, so they're just taking a new look at math, and it's like, well, maybe we need to approach it differently, because kids think and solve, you know, anyway.
Well,
But it is, there were some ways in that vision math that they were showing first grade, I'm like, oh gosh, this does not make sense, but it does to kids.
You know, one
And
of
they
the
begin to
things,
get it, you know?
one
Yeah,
of the things
right.
with the Go Math and stuff that I've noticed in reading the book and stuff was everything that I'm studying right now has to do with variety of instruction.
Absolutely.
And I don't think teachers have to go and instruct every different way, because there's a variety of teaching methods, there's a variety of learning, and I think we got used to the stand and deliver method of instruction, which delivers to the lowest percentage of learning. Well, we're moving to the variety of learners, variety of teaching methods to address the variety of learners. But I don't know that we just have to give them opportunities through activities.
Yeah, you have to know your learners and pick the way that the most of them are learning. And that's hard for people that some teachers don't even understand math. They're having, you
Right.
know what I mean? Like, you know, in elementary, well, that's one reason for sometimes, you know, having certain teachers teach math, because then they can really devote the time to learn it. When
Right.
you're teaching all content,
You can't do it.
teachers, they
Nuh-uh.
don't have that time to get to know their
Focus.
students that much and then find ways to, so that's the beauty of sometimes being,
And
you
it kind
know.
of sounds like that's what we're
Right.
doing, is we're trying to teach everything to
Well,
everybody.
You just kinda have to get to
Well,
And we
I
need
know
to-
this
time with
was
that curriculum.
fourth grade math. I was never taught what an array was, but an array defines multiplication beautifully. I mean, the kids would learn just from an array how to multiply.
Yeah,
But that's a, you know,
Right.
using an array can make all the difference on learning what multiplication really is.
It's like you're on target, because particularly, usually you do a major push and really begin to find those kids and work with those kids, you know, the last 2 months as you're going into it. But when you talk about progress growth, you have to talk about those bubble kids, those high kids. You cannot just talk about the low.
That's
And
true.
if you talk about just the low, you're not going to make the growth that you need
Right.
to. And
Exactly.
so whether after school is only for the low, and you start doing something else different during the day for those others, or where, you know, she's got overall here, but I know she's got lists that show which kids it is, because she had it the last time I was here, and it shows which kids are making growth and which aren't. And some, you can tell, they have a pretty good scale score, but they're not making enough growth. And I don't know that we have time to do that all today, but
I think if we agree to an initiative where we want to talk about with the teachers, then we can all, you know, take our time. We can do our part in
But
getting
my
with those
question
teachers who are picking those kids.
to you would be, let's assume it's not just the low. Let's just assume right now it's those bubble to higher kids. What can you think of that we need to do for those kids between now and the test? Like, that would be a need that I think needs major
Provide
addressing.
opportunities that might not happen during the normal classroom instruction of higher cognitive thinking skills that we're teaching in the main part of it, and we may be teaching to the low part of it, but we never get to that higher cognitive thinking skills that the upper echelon of the students may need. I mean, that may be something you might do with an after-school activity as well. I know one thing on the top one, tutoring after school needed, that was also mentioned was starting it in January in previous years to make the big push, and it was a good 12 weeks.
It
Is
what
that
it
right,
is.
Miss Graves?
Yeah.
Well,
About
and I
12 weeks?
think, I mean, and tutoring has been going on. I don't want y'all to think it's not occurring, because the tutoring is occurring, but it's not to the level of structure that y'all are talking about with the EYP. Like,
EYP.
My question is there on the, I think it's on something you did.
We should do community.
Like on the benchmark test, does it divide up, like, let's say the reading skills and the math skills by which skill they passed and which they didn't? To me, those on the bubble need to be, like, say, if the majority of them are weak on summary, then that's what needs to be worked on with them
Yeah.
after school. If they're on the bubble for summary, we
Yeah.
need to take the summarization part and say, okay, today, after school, we're gonna look at how you summarize and go, it has to have a beginning, middle, end, and read each paragraph. Tell me, did that have a beginning, middle, end? I mean, to me, we've got to find the exact part that those bubble kids are weak on, and that's what we've got to work on with them.
Now, again, you may have mentioned this, Debbie, but when you define bubble kids, we can talk about bubble kids for passing and bubble kids for growth.
I'm talking for growth. Well,
Exactly.
I'm not even, I don't even know if they're bubble kids. I'm talking about who are those kids that are not making the growth? Because you can identify them. They may be in the high, they may be down here
Right.
not passing, they may be passing but not making enough growth, but you gotta figure out who they are. And so we can talk generically now, I mean, because you can go in and do that, but what are you gonna do for those kids between now and then? Because you can find right now who they are. But the question is, what kind of things, what kind of strategies, what kind of, what are you gonna do between now and then? I mean, there's lots of different thoughts. What do y'all think? So we don't know if they're the ones that are hanging by a thread, not passing. They could be passing but not showing enough growth. They could be not, we can, but no matter what kind of kids they are or who they're, typically, and not, when you talk about tutoring, and that's why I asked you who you're talking about, we think about those kids that are well below grade level.
Right.
That's who, and intervention teachers right now are working with what kind of kids? Through this year, what have you been working with?
The ones that are below grade
Okay,
level.
so they've already had some major intervention, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you have intervention teachers and you had lab teachers for a while or whatever you had,
Right.
let me tell you, in general, you've already focused on those low. Now, I'm not saying forget them, because we never want to forget them, but you've got to make sure you're doing something, particularly with progress growth, for this other group of kids. And what? I mean,
Well,
I'm
some of
talking,
those-
think way out of the box here. Like, think, what would the day look
Example.
like? What could you do? What could
Well,
you
to
do
me,
after school,
vocabulary
on
is a big
Saturday,
part for
nighttime?
those
I don't
Did
know.
the intervention teachers change their focus on children?
I'm just saying brainstorm right now.
That's like me.
I'm not
just
saying
brainstorming.
like there's a solution. Like, what do you
Because it's
think?
all 2, 3
could
weeks.
happen?
What we
They
used to
have
do is I never had an intervention teacher when I taught math. But this time of year, they would hire Mrs. Jareka to come in, and she would take those bubble students, and I would do the low after school in OEYP.
An idea that I had,
I'm gonna write that down because that's
That's-
something
That's
I
what
don't.
we did.
I
And
think that's
I'm
what
not
we
talking
should
about,
go
do we
back
think
to.
we have funds, just what do
Do
you
it.
think is
Exactly.
gonna help? And then we'll have to go through and say, feasible, not feasible, I don't know. So you're
That's
saying
right.
sometimes you
Well,
hired
Miss-
an additional
yes.
tutor, like a
Yes,
daytime
we did.
Yes.
This guy would start about February and March.
Retired
Yes.
certified.
A retired
Yeah,
certified.
with these numbers that are presented right here, that's going back to basic math facts, because that's the percentage that,
She would
so
tell us.
we're still not getting the basic math facts.
well, look at the test, it's reading.
And
It's
I-
a
I
lot of
think it's
reading.
It is.
Yeah.
It may be,
After I
but
saw
I was
that-
looking at the math
Oh,
part,
look,
but
the
you're
math.
talking
No, I
about
mean, I
reading
think it's reading of.
for the math.
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
it's the reading part of the math.
Well, that was,
Questions are like-
that was my
It's
student in
understanding what the
particular.
questions are
Yeah.
asking.
That was my student in particular. He started out at a 0.0 to 1.3 reading
Just
level.
brainstorming.
And then
try
he
to
went
get
to a
the need real quick.
2.7 reading level, which he was real good at math, but he struggled with math because he couldn't read. And
Exactly.
now that he can read, math isn't as hard for him, because in the second
Exactly.
grade, the
Well,
word problems
So
started
we
becoming
have this
more.
group, we don't know if they're hanging by,
Right.
but we're thinking about the kids that are not making progress,
Well, that's-
whatever kind of kids they are.
That's
So
what she would tell us. She would say, I'm here to get your bubble students. I'm here to get those that you think.
the people that aren't making in this case, aren't
Right.
making the progress they need to. So we talked
Right.
about,
And we would
we're just
soak in
bringing
those
additional retired teacher
after
to
school
help,
really good that
intervention
really needed
teacher
it.
change their focus. What else? What else could you?
One thing that I've been doing in the writing class that I think is working is I group the kids into, I created 5 groups of 4, and I would rotate them through stations. And one station involved working with me, and where I was able to really sit down with those 4 and see exactly where they were struggling with their thinking and redirect them. And each group looked a little bit differently, and each thing that I did with each group looked a little bit differently based on their needs. What if we could take that on a bigger scale and look at, because I know reading essentially for 3rd and 4th grade is the same, right? So could we take 3rd and 4th grade kids and look at their weaknesses across the board, mix them up if we need to, and create groups and have 2 or 3 teachers working together through different things so that we have am I expressing
No,
that
No,
right?
that's
I
what,
know what you're
remember
saying, but
after
I
we
don't
got
think-
our benchmark scores this last time and I called you on the weekend or
Yes.
Friday night and I said, we need to divide and conquer.
Yeah.
That's because right now the kids think
I
that
have
they're
a lot
not
of
talking.
4th graders.
You're
who are
not
on 3rd
talking
grade
to
level.
them, you're
We're
talking to
still
somebody else. So we have to divide and
Hills.
conquer.
Yes.
So that's
So
been my biggest
the
problem.
whole,
Well, I mean,
the whole group isn't,
But then that way those kids that are higher, you can push them even more
Yes.
without having, you know what I mean?
Right.
But if we can do that, we can break that down, figure a way to manage that, I think we'll get the biggest bang for our buck because it's more targeted.
And
Well-
I've seen people bring in additional people. I'm not saying Jessica can, but she's already sounds like she's working with writing. But sometimes they use consultants in the district.
Exactly.
They get the AP, the principal
right.
to do a little bit.
That's
Anybody free that has
That's right,
some
yeah.
expertise. Now you always worry because I'm going
That's
to talk
not tied
to you.
to a class.
You always
Yeah.
worry that. But they're so used to what I'm doing, and I don't want them getting, and I worry about that more with math than I do sort of with reading. Because somebody comes in and there's 4 different ways, they start teaching them another way. Okay, I don't tend to typically worry about that with reading as much because you're just getting down and dirty with some of those kids and having them reading some passages, telling paragraphs, they're telling you what they're getting and learning, and you can tweak some of that without really, because, I know you've probably taught them, everybody does, some strategies to use when you're taking a test. And if people are going to help, they need to know some of that. But sometimes, particularly in reading, I think these additional people, they just somehow it just clicks with the kids for whatever reason. But I'm not saying, I've seen stuff like that work and help. I've seen it not. I've seen the teacher go into, the thing is when you get into review mode, which everybody does,
Exactly.
you have to get into review mode in the most creative, positive, stroking mode. It
You can
cannot
do
be
this.
kill and drill. And we
No, it
all
can't.
go into kill and drill because we're scared. We're worried. We got the last minute ditch and we start using all those black line. And reading, you have to use passages. There's no way around that. But you can't just kill them with multiple choice questions, mark it out, find it in. You have to think creatively. I've seen people use those little flag sticky notes and make them think they're doing something different. But that little thing where you just have to find something that seems a little
We did a
different
lot
and
of
exciting.
vocabulary too,
And make 'em.
activities, not necessarily
Right.
things that were in that story, just vocabulary activities. Because to me, those kids that aren't making growth, that's some of their weaknesses. They don't know what those words mean.
They're stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
Where are they stuck? at?
So you
Just-
definitely have to get into review mode, but you have to think of what's some of the most, and like you said, stations.
We're
and
playing basketball right now to review. We've got
yeah.
We're doing a whole class game. We've got them in groups. They have to respond. The groups that get the answer, and then it's a team effort, but they have to prove their answer. If they get the answer right and the proof right, they can. If they make the shot, it counts for double. So they're lining up, and they're
Yeah.
So it gives
March
the kids that
Madness.
are
There
good
you go.
at this, but not so good at the thinking things through, an opportunity to shine, and they're liking it.
Variety of instruction.
Yeah.
So I mean that always goes a long way, but there's some other things that are to deal with
And that helps when you
structuring,
only have one test to
scheduling,
look at,
additional
too, to think
people.
about.
And I don't know if they have the means, but I've seen
It's
all
hard when you
kinds
have
of
to do
things
both, yeah.
come in as a last stitch. But the big thing is, you have to keep that attitude with the kids. You can do it. I'm not asking
Exactly.
you to do anything you can't. I
Right.
believe in
You got
you.
this.
I know,
Right.
because if they get that sense of you're
Doubting
down on me,
themselves.
you think I'm
Right.
worthless,
Because
and
they're
it's
doing
hard
big
because
tricks.
they're
That's
getting low
exactly.
scores
Prove
and they're
them
getting,
wrong.
but you have to
And they're
keep
like,
that
oh.
win-win
Well,
attitude.
you have to say, I think you can do it. And they'll go, you think I can? Yeah, I think you can.
And you have to
And when
have-
you do, I'm going to buy you
I
a
mean,
cake.
I had eighth graders.
You will be rewarded.
I had eighth graders dying for that popsicle on Friday.
Exactly.
Eighth graders. They would meet
I did
me
that with
in
fourth grade
in
all the time.
Little thing where I had the refrigerator, getting their popsicle, and but you
You're
have
right.
to do that,
You
and
have
you
to
have to
reward.
build it in, and
You have to.
And then the kid that doesn't ever get the popsicle, sometimes you have to reward them for growth or whatever. But when y'all were talking, and I know, why don't they believe it instinctively? Why? Because sometimes their life is just not great like
Exactly.
those kids are. I mean,
Exactly.
let's just face it. It's always beating them down, and never do anything right. And so school is just another thing. So right here, having themes or, but keep that
Positive.
win-win. You can do it, but then you're going to be in review mode. There's no doubt about it. Or last-minute ditch effort, whatever
Right.
you want to call it. But how creative and interesting and positive you can make it, and then you have to do sometimes some, I don't want to say restructuring, but like where you decide we're going to pay someone to come in, and you got to schedule that through, or we're going to do this, and they're going to help, and you got to think that through. So when I say structuring, scheduling, it's not changing everybody's schedule, it's working out all the
And I think working
dynamics
with what you
of how
have.
that happens.
I mean, like you said, if
Yeah.
we need to go in there, or if Kim's available for 30 minutes, or whoever needs to go in and pull, or Tracy can come in,
Yeah.
we get a sub
Right.
for Tracy,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, you
Then
go to
that-
some of
it's
your
working with
best,
what you
and
have.
one year, and I told y'all this before, but my science was on the ropes. It was terrible, and we couldn't believe it because I had some of the best science teachers ever. And they said, well, eighth graders had to take some science over some sixth grade skills, and they all loved those sixth grade teachers. They went up there and taught 2 days. Very out of the box, very, but those kids remembered
We
when
did
I
that.
did the cell diagram or whatever that was fun. That was with Mr. Kellogg, and he came up there, and so
Right.
the teachers came up with that thought. So my same thought. She's been teaching kindergarten for a while. Sometimes kids, they relate, and they're like, she cares about me. She came up here and she's reminding
She brought
me.
a treasure chest.
Da da da. So
I got a sticker.
so it doesn't mean that the current people aren't doing it right. It just means we're all in this together.
That's what I said too.
And that's why, and I'm not pushing Saturday schools because everybody likes a break. But
Right.
we called them Saturday camps, and you're running out of weekends because you
Exactly.
got Easter and whatever. But we did them, and it was like stations. It was fun. It didn't look like math.
Right.
It didn't look like
it was
reading.
math.
But you were playing games with vocabulary cards, and so you ran them through the ropes, but it did not seem to them like it's a review. And we just put our best minds together, and they just created those activities. And we invited certain kids to come to Saturday school. In this case, it won't all be low. It's going to be
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Or if it's a evening thing for 2 hours, and call it a, I don't know, a camp that, an ice cream camp or whatever you want to call it. But sometimes you just have to do those kind of things because you just run out of. You can do a lot of things in the day, but they're just more focused sometimes when they come in for that. They think it's fun, and it's just, I don't know your community that well, but I haven't seen.
I will get behind you.
I had
if
an
you need.
8th grade principal friend that she,
Huh?
If you see them, they will come.
they
Yeah,
will
we
come.
found out.
They
from
will
Dr.
come. We fed them donuts. We fed them donuts, and we
You feed them a meal, you'll get the whole
We
tank.
fed them donuts on Saturday morning. We fed them a pizza when they walked out the door.
Well, that's what we always did. No, we fed them good.
Yeah.
And that's why they were ready to
Maybe
go
somebody
again.
will donate some food to you from your district. But
Treasure chest.
I saw this 8th
Exactly.
grade principal. She did her own writing camps on Saturday, and she invited all kids, and she got great success. And you wouldn't think 8th graders? Oh, come on. What
Yeah.
8th graders going to come on a Saturday?
That's
So
true.
when I tell you that things work, I'm not just blowing and going here. I've seen
They
it
work.
work with all kinds of different groups of kids and age level of kids, and I don't know why they just. And you
Right.
don't get everybody that you hope
Right.
you would get.
No,
but you get a
you're
good
not going to get
majority,
everybody.
and you're running out of time. But sometimes we didn't have them but once a month or something. But they've come to one and they, that wasn't so bad. It's better than just maybe
Some of them
don't have a
anything
fun.
to do
You
at
know,
Yeah,
home.
some of them
I
don't
taught-
have a fun environment at
Because-
home, and it
yeah.
doesn't
When
really
I taught
matter.
Connie,
They'd
we
rather
did
be at
that.
school.
Yeah.
Like if our kids had a recess, someone would come, like an assistant, watch them, so we could help tutor. a different, and it was just like a month or two before.
Yeah.
And I was saying earlier how we did the after school, another partner would partner with me, and sometimes the kids learn better from him. Sometimes it just takes a different face, a different perspective, just a different approach that will
Or just to know
Reach
more
that child.
people are actually
care about
behind
them.
you and
Exactly.
caring about it.
Exactly.
Because, you know, you kind of have to just keep saying, look, I care about
Yes.
you. I want you to do well.
It's kinda
Right,
like
and I know how the
mentoring
kids even
program
looked
that
up to
we
you,
put
look
in.
to
Well,
you
just, I mean,
Right.
just trying to.
with reading.
To push them on. I mean, I'm not saying, when I said a while ago about the fear of the test, I'm not saying I want them to be in there, but
No.
I do want them to
Important.
understand that it's important.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Right.
because I don't know, I think some of them now think, okay, well, this is so hard, this is all I'm gonna do.
Right.
I'm just gonna click this, cause I see it when they go in there in the computer lab and take the STAR test. And some of those kids that I had in math, like he was talking about, I would have them intervention, and they could do all that stuff. And I kept saying, why are y'all in the STAR math making such low scores? And finally I said, can you read it? I said, then you know what? You need to raise your hand. And you need, because to me, it's not a, I know it is then,
No,
but
no,
for
no.
K and first
Yeah,
and
no,
second,
no.
it should not be a reading test.
Right.
If they don't understand that question and they can add 6 plus 3, but the way it's worded, they don't know that,
Yeah.
then I tell them, you know how to do that. Listen to the question, and I would read it to them. I never wanted them to fail or do bad on the STAR math because it was a reading test for them, and they couldn't do it. Because I've seen that on some of the scores, and usually I'll go back and say, did they ask you to help them, or because in class they can
They
add 3-digit numbers, and
Yeah.
you know, so they kind of will come out and say things sometimes if they're in a small group,
Yeah,
they'll
they won't
say
say in a big
that
group.
they won't say in a big group,
Yes.
you know, like, oh, I couldn't read the words, or, you know.
Well, that, on the tier 3 interventions, I know, we do the tier 1, we do the tier 2, and there's different ways of going through it. But on the tier 3 intervention, sometimes we take it to another level on tier 3, to where instead of small group instruction, which one of my students is with Miss Graves, and he receives it there, but then he also gets it with me on one-on-one,
Yeah.
and it's more, I mean, so there's a relaxed tier 3, and there's more of an intense tier 3, and I think that's really made a difference with him, because his
Well, I've
reading
made a
levels,
lot of
his
progress.
math
I can
levels.
tell you, the more small group or station learning, whatever you wanna call it, that you can, station, but with someone there, sort of, you know, the more you can think about people and how, that you can get some of that in, and it's not necessarily pull out, just kinda go in the room and pull a group over. Sometimes it can be pull out, but the more you kinda get that going on this last little push, I've seen it make a big difference, but
That goes back to what Ms. Favor was talking about earlier, when you hire a highly qualified teacher to come in and teach half of the class or part of the class. But one thing that I've read about recently is when Ms. Favor talked about it, it was, she would take the most of her class, where the highly qualified teacher would came and take the lower echelon. Well, one of the articles I've read is the regular teacher stays with the lower echelon of kids and goes over the basic math facts again with the growth 1, the index 1 part of it, to where the newer teacher, the highly qualified teacher, comes in and does the higher order cognitive skills, and you know, and then flip it.
Yeah.
So
Right,
take those
exactly.
two and flip it back and forth to where
But you
everything we
did
just
teach the
talked
weak
about.
ones, didn't you? And Mr. Rika kinda took the ones that were middle of the road.
well, you could do it both ways. I
Either
mean,
way.
it's whatever. Yeah.
But when
do-
we did the computer lab, it was just for the kids who we knew didn't need more, I kept the ones who needed the most help when we did the computer lab. And it was just twice a week. But I worked with them for 45 minutes with the 45-minute periods. And she took the ones that didn't need any, we were sure they were going to pass. But, you know, could have done a little better. But I kept the low that really needed to pass.
But if you flip that every once in a
Yeah.
while, a different
It could be
perspective.
beneficial, yeah.
Everything we just talked about, if somebody else thinks it's important just besides my regular classroom teacher.
Right.
I know the mentor program that
That's what
we
we
put
did too.
together, I've gotten 2 students, and the first couple of days I pulled them out and gave them little prizes, talked to them about their writing and things like that. And then I didn't see them for a week, and they have been wearing me out, asking me, when are you gonna come get us
Yes.
again? Because, you know, we got snacks, give them some football cards, the basketball
That's
cards,
all
things
I
like
know.
that.
Just
That's right.
talking to
Oh.
them.
Something to
Right.
motivate
It's just
them.
that they're being recognized. I mean, that someone cares about them.
That is so true.
That goes so far. It's
Right.
hard to convince people of that, but just someone caring about them, interested.
Talking
can
about
really,
writing, talking about math,
mhm.
talking
Yeah,
about
you-
reading.
right.
And, but they've been wearing me out. Come get us.
How have your
Come get
kids,
us.
your two boys, didn't you have Tracy and Donald?
Uh-huh.
Are they?
I need to talk to them again, but I did at the beginning of the
Right, I
last
knew you
one.
had, yeah.
Right, but I don't,
With the fair in here, it's been kind of
Mhm.
choppy.
I have
but-
Gabby
and I don't see them.
Leah.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, I
decided
really
their
have to make,
schedule, yeah.
right.
Messes.
You have to go out of your way sometimes
Yes,
to go do
but
it.
you're right.
But I went like a week and a half without seeing them.
Yeah.
They
2
took
weeks,
every
and
available
then
day.
yesterday I
Everybody
thought,
on campus and
I'm
decided
gonna
to
make
run.
time to
I
do
know,
it.
I need to do that too. I need to make time. I see
before
Trace quite a bit, but I need to make time
Oh,
for
for writing.
Donald.
Well, because
That's
it's
wonderful.
in December, we only had 5%.
Yeah, I remember. I knew
So-
y'all
But
were
they
doing
see me
something.
passing in the
So
halls and
Jessica
they're
went in and
wearing
did
me
the
out.
help the teacher, and then I assigned
like,
everybody a writing.
Come get us.
Except for Audra and I.
Because they know they're going to get a
That's
snack
so
or a
wonderful.
fry.
I gave mine snacks too,
Oh,
yeah.
no, she does.
I mean, like I said, y'all are putting in, don't think that, I mean, that's wonderful, and that's like a fabulous
I can't find
idea.
a median.
Y'all are doing so much, I don't want you to think when I'm saying, push your thinking just a little bit more, but it's just,
No, I think we can
just
go
push
there.
it just a tad more, because you might just come up with
Because we-
something that's very doable, and it may just be the push you need.
And
I mean,
we
that's-
applied this in writing because December benchmarks were so
Well,
scary.
exactly,
We had
right.
2 kids passing and they weren't even from the district.
Right.
So, we made this big push and we saw growth.
Mhm.
Is it where it needs to be? No, but it's,
Right.
Better than where
Better.
We're better
than where
than
it was.
stagnant.
Yeah.
we went from 9% to 20% and that was a week and a half of
And
doing
from
this
kids
stuff.
not knowing
No.
the difference in expository and narrative to them actually writing an expository and a
Expository,
narrative
right.
on the right day.
Well, and I
and
admire you
a
for doing that
full-
because you
yeah,
get really
I
getting an
know.
idea of what is going, what it takes.
Yeah.
What it takes and the planning and everything
Well,
else
but-
that goes into it.
And what I was getting at though is we focused on the writing. Okay, well now let's focus on
The re-
the
reading
math
and
and the
the math.
reading
Right.
that's coming up. So, and take that same approach with it.
Right.
And what's been beneficial, like with doing the stations, I had one group, and then Mrs. Blake had another group, and she was working on something specific.
Right.
And then the other 2, they were independent stations.
Right.
And at first, they were kind of awful on independent stations. And I said, okay, well, you want to play this game? You want to play some basketball on Thursday and Friday? Well, you got to show me that you can handle those independent stations, and they were perfect. From then on out, they were perfect.
Incentives.
And then I said, oh, well, first period did a lot better than you guys did. Okay, then second period was great. I said, well, second period did the first, you know what I mean? And so
The competition.
that
Well,
4th grade
those
class
two-
was competition. And so picked up on that, and I am, exploiting
That's their
that,
motivation.
that motivation piece for those guys. But that can be applied across. What if we could get 2 teachers into the classrooms every other day for
That's what I
each
was
different
Gonna
class?
ask. We have about, it's 1:30. We can keep talking about this for about 30 more minutes, and then we can go on to staff development. But let's come up with some ideas that we can present to the STAR teachers. And I'm willing to help with math. I know Tracy said she's willing to help with math. And let's think of other people on campus that we can actually implement for
I'll
the next
help with
month.
reading. I mean,
I
I don't mind helping with reading.
I'm sure Jody wouldn't mind helping with reading.
That'd be a good
She
one.
said that she wouldn't mind helping.
That would be real good.
I mean, I don't know how many, I don't even know if you'll have consultants, I don't know how many other
Yeah, are there
curriculum kind
others-
of people you have,
Other
but,
people that you can think of.
my other district, they brought those people.
She was
What
on
about
campus
2 weeks?
yesterday, Miss Robbins.
Miss Robbins got hired in Carn City. She's doing intervention in Carn City.
Where
What?
did they move to?
Schools.
Where did they move
They
to?
moved to Carn City.
Yeah.
They moved
Oh,
to
they're
like
in Carn
Sharon
City.
Rock.
That's what I was
I am so
wondering.
mad about
They moved to Panna Maria, and they called her and asked her if she would be willing to do after-school intervention, and she's only doing it 2 days a
Because
week.
then I have Megan
Oh,
in
we
the room
take her
too,
for-
so.
Hey.
That's what a retired
she's
teacher
really
that's
good.
my husband's uncle was just telling me
Hey,
yesterday.
just-
They
just-
called
Like,
her
we
up.
could do small groups. If,
She goes in for
if
2
maybe
days a
Jody
week.
could come in and help too.
She's
does.
good. They said you're
Yeah.
good at what
If
you
you
do.
needed somebody,
That
I'd
doesn't
do
mean
that.
we can't
Okay,
wrestle
I
her
told
away.
Megan when we get back from,
We can try.
She
The
can't
thing-
work more
I-
than 2
you
days a week
cannot
due to
think
retirement
about
stuff,
math.
Yeah, she
But
works
it's
2
the
days
reading
a
progress
week
growth
after
that
school,
maybe hurt you.
from
I mean, she said they're not gonna
3 to
score math.
5:30.
She's the
It's pretty
best.
long.
She's
I
awesome.
mean, she
Yeah.
knows the
Yeah.
progress
I
I
growth.
know
they're
when my
not.
daughter was
But
struggling
we
in
don't
high
know if
school
Miss
with
Robbins-
geometry.
That's,
I had
We're not sure
her,
how they're gonna do it.
That's what she's
yeah,
doing.
I was
now.
hoping she
I'm not
And
saying
they're-
forget
and
it,
she's
but I'm
7,
saying you
but
really gotta
she's
look at
mostly
reading
just
our
doing
passing.
the
But
after
she liked
school.
Yeah.
Self-watch.
I mean, I think you need both,
Mhm.
but,
And then we also have Mr. Shop and Miss
we
Horseback.
could always
What about
pass
Miss-
the hat and pay off the books.
Do what?
Pass the hat and pay off the books.
Yeah.
Does has Mrs., our counselor, has she ever taught anything? like
She did
that on this
computers.
one?
The computers,
Computers?
science or computer.
I was just thinking
But we've
people
been
that might
laughing
be
because she's like the guru on charts and spreadsheets and you name it. She's got it done, and so.
Hey, there's charts and math.
Audra,
I'm just gonna say, let her teach arts and science.
Yeah,
She knows how to do this.
She
and
goes, here, this isn't a Miss Morrison actor.
There's plenty of charts and math and science.
It's not.
How about Mr. Jambers?
Yeah,
That's what, because I know Ida's needing help in science.
He
That's
came
what
in
my
with
next
science
question
last
was.
year.
But
No.
do we pay, I mean, would we contract with him, or how does
We
that
have
work?
to.
With who?
Mr. Jambers to
Oh,
come
yeah.
help with the science.
We have to.
Oh, he'd be
Because if
awesome.
he
Yeah.
has to come in for the science test, he has to be paid.
Do what?
I said if he comes in to help her administer the test.
Well,
But also, I mean, like Miss Dogner could go up and help Miss Gomez.
I know
and we
she's
could
helping
get
it
a
out. She is
sub.
helping her, I know, in the afternoon.
We could
Before
get a
and
sub
after,
for Miss Dogner if Miss
I don't know if they're
Gomez
doing
needed
both.
it.
I don't know how we want to work mine. I don't want to be out of my class too much, but I don't mind helping.
Well, I was thinking
About
if we have all these
myself.
people available for math,
Right.
I could take first period, you could take second period, you know, third period, and
What
we
about
could break
Mr.
it up
Robot?
wherever Miss.
Yeah, he probably
Mr.
would.
Robach and math. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
it's
ask
hard
him.
to-
You can ask him.
Miss Graves, how about Miss Self?
I was thinking
Do we
too.
look
scare
scared
them
away?
off. If you
The only
get
thing
a
is
2-hour
that she
campus
does
for
work
school and get some
at
of these
another
people
job.
jobs.
That's what I'm thinking
But
too.
she would
You
probably
know,
do it
maybe
if
not
we
a
asked her
daily
to.
kind of thing
Is
where
that-
you're going
Miss
out of your
Self?
room.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Self?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, Miss Teague.
Hey, you bring
Miss
those,
Miss Teague,
you
Miss
bring those
Teague would,
third
but
graders
Miss
in here.
Teague does have a really sick family member right now.
Yeah, I
But
haven't seen
he's
her
sick.
very much lately.
Gerald's brother. He's in real bad shape right now. I mean, she would do it.
How,
Yeah.
did you meet Davy with this group?
I know it's a high school person. I
Because
can't think of
sometimes,
her
you
name
know,
right
they
now.
do it 2 or 3 days.
She retired a couple of years. Yeah,
But I
last year.
think
Do
we've
both?
been offering
No.
to
Oh,
Miss
Miss
Gomez, if I told Miss Gomez that,
She still
tell me
does
when you need
UIL.
Rachel there and I'll get her there. You know, things like that.
What does
Make
she
it-
teach, Ms. Gomez?
Miss Gomez is 5th and 6th grade science.
Oh, science,
Miss
okay. Yeah,
Stogner's
yeah.
3rd and 4th grade science, but Miss Stogner did teach 5th grade. She moved down to 3rd
Right,
and 4th
right,
grade.
yeah.
So just having 2 people in the room, I think, just for the 5th grade classes, then
Mm-hmm.
I think that would help.
And sometimes, you know, if there's if they've given a benchmark, there, and sometimes they just missed everything, but, you know, if you can see these people don't understand life science very well, someone's kind of zeroing in on that, and these don't have any clue about whatever, I mean, if it's that, usually it's
'cause,
just they're missing a little bit of everything.
And we're saying Mrs. I don't remember her name. She's an aide, Julia.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah, Julia
Julia,
Martin.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Monsonaris.
And I'm sure your budget,
How about
for
Miss
the
Dubose
district is pretty well set,
from the
but
high school?
She's
You
pretty
know,
busy.
she
I
can
think
go
she
forward.
does. She
I can
only
call
is
the
here for what
superintendent
she
and say,
wants to
hey,
be here
you know,
for. I've
hey,
asked
you
her.
never know. She
Yeah,
might
I've
be
asked
there
her
for-
before, and
Okay.
she's like, "No, I'm good, thanks."
you
So
know, I mean, it's like, you gotta,
We were
We're making
ex-science
progress. We're
teachers
making-
we've had.
we believe
High
we're
school
making
or
progress,
junior
and
high.
it looks strong, but.
Miss
Ex-
Hudick.
Oh,
Miss Cole, Sammy Coleman was an ex-science teacher too. Sammy Ruth, do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Sammy Huff.
Sammy Ruth.
You know, even I've seen just brainstorming here, my science lab teacher,
Clay
they always
McGill.
had science boot camp.
Clay McGill.
They had
Who
a
taught
week,
science?
Yeah, you did.
they had a week,
Ashley's taught science.
we had a
Ashley
week of
McGill.
science boot camp, and everybody in the school did science.
That's true, Ashley
Stuff,
was a science
But
teacher.
you would
for
have
And
to
Clay.
do a week.
You
but
can
could
get
have
community
boot camp for
members
2
come in
days.
and help.
They could go through fun kind of stations, even during the day, you know, and, the elementary and several that I've been at before, they would do things like science boot camp, you know, again,
We'll
they
take
just
pictures of
cliche,
it
they
and
bought
put it
little
in the paper,
shirts, you know,
community
and
help.
call it science boot camp.
Yeah, then you don't know who you would
My
get.
classes.
Yeah,
Some
no,
might
it's
do more
okay.
I
damage
could
than
probably
good.
combine
No,
some
but
of
like
my
Clay.
classes
Okay.
to
Clay
open
taught
up some of my
science.
I
periods.
mean, it's just for a month, you know,
Right.
really just the month of April.
Yeah.
Three
I
weeks.
Just to
mean,
divide the
I could
class.
Because that's what I
Probably
told
do.
Megan after the writing test, I said we're gonna do small
Reading
group with reading,
stations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Clay and Ashley McGill.
So writing about April's
They both
5th or
taught
6th?
science.
Writing is next week,
At the
Monday,
junior high.
Tuesday.
Okay, I was thinking it was usually.
They were generalist,
4th or 5th, but that would be next week.
4 through 8, I believe,
Easter falling in the
certification.
30th and 31st.
And then we did that kind of
Nancy
stuff when,
offered
after
to
5th grade took the first thing, cause then by then, everybody else,
What
you know,
about
would go into a different mode with them and do all kinds of
Oh,
stuff to
it's
help with
confusing
us.
Patsy up there. Okay.
Okay, she's really good too.
She would probably help with reading. But.
So I know a little bit about science boot camps and those kind of ideas.
I'm just thinking if all these people took one period of the classes that need help, and then were there available for that teacher every day to do small group, or
Your
then we could.
On a 7-day off
Or
thing.
her, it might just be 2 times.
Right, he was straight PE.
You could do elementary math.
He was straight PE. I mean, he could help out with that, but not so PE.
When
Dude,
on
I
his
asked
7
this
days
too.
off, when he gets one
When
of
he's
those.
not working on the field.
I was thinking about this right before the test. Do they do like a heavy review? Like, do they go over every? We used to like order a book, How to Get Better Tax Scores, and it was a review of everything. And you would.
I know Rudy does the 20-day star prep.
I don't know what that looks like, but I know
Five,
that
10 days start prep.
it was a
No,
good
15
resource for the last.
Is
few
there
weeks.
one of those for like the 3rd and 4th grade levels? You said there was one for 4th grade?
Oh yeah, there was one for 3rd grade too, but I
For
don't
math
know.
or for reading too.
I don't know. I just taught math.
Yeah, we used to have it. That one company did a 15-day for math,
And
but
with the
I've never seen anything for
rigor of
reading.
the test though,
I don't know.
It's
The Lone
just-
Star.
it's like just having them read, because we're so low in reading, just reading overall.
What is an? I mean, I don't know.
And my teachers, I mean, they had them reading passages, but sometimes they would just read to them from a book and then ask those same kind of questions
Yeah.
and then, or put the story, you just, do a read aloud so the kids aren't,
That's
you
right.
always want them working, but it's like writing. They can't write every day or they're so burned out. So you kind of have to, you have to think of these ways, but then they would ask those types of questions from a,
It's just the rigor of the
Yeah.
way, or just the way you ask the question.
Right, exactly.
For them to get them thinking, and we do that every day.
Variety of
We do it every day.
instruction.
Like with reading, is there ever like books on tapes where you could each get a novel and read it as you listen to it? That's more of a fun book.
There
We
was
don't
a-
have any, and I've been talking to Jody about ordering some for next year.
Because I know Bryce used to like stuff like that, and then at the end he could AR test over. Usually there were a lot of points, but he enjoyed that listening to the tape.
There's an engineer from the
There's
plant
Marie
that
Carvo,
used to
it's
come out
not,
and
they're
help
not
with the high
AR, so,
jump.
but they're just
I
stories,
wanna
they're
say
small
I have
short
those.
stories.
But that's what I'm saying, even if they read an ongoing
I have
chapter
some of
book, the
those.
teacher.
A chapter a
read
day.
aloud,
Kids
Right.
and the
know.
kids just, even if sometimes they're just
Some of
listening,
them.
Coke
but
it.
then you go
There
in and you
go.
ask those
Mr.
more,
Cook, he's always volunteering to help.
questions that make them
He'll
think or
come
say,
to track meets
and then,
and
are you,
things like that,
after
and
you're
he's an
done reading it,
engineer,
then you
so-
flap up a copy of the print on the
just
screen,
trying to think
and you,
and brainstorm.
work some, but you
I was
do
using
it,
Camel,
just do it in a
sorry.
different format, where
Right.
they're
I
not,
was
you
using
want them still
Camel with them
reading,
just because of the way
but they're
they
hearing
word
it and
the
they're learning how to
questions in
still
there.
Are those
do those
star
comprehension
Kimiko,
kind of
or-
thoughts.
That's what I was thinking because I know he enjoyed that.
We read Junie B. Jones in 1st
Oh
grade.
gosh, I read Judy
And-
Jones the rest.
Yeah, and the
We-
kids
he-
absolutely love Junie B. Jones.
They do. He loved.
That
I think
was
he read
their
every one of them.
Saving, they would sit there, you could hear a pin drop. I
And
mean,
the
it
Magic
was funny.
Tree House.
It was laugh, but
Yeah.
I read a chapter a day, like during what we called, we're not really supposed to have a snack time,
Yeah.
but I would let them eat because I
Right.
felt like they needed to hear reading.
Right.
And then they would test over that story.
Yeah.
But we questioned them. I mean, I questioned them as we went. We
Right.
went back.
That's what I'm saying,
And-
you can do reading strategies and good reading
Right.
questions with some oral read alouds,
Right.
but you also have to have them read, but, you come in with different ways to get this whole reading and understanding what you read as you're reviewing.
After I did my participating video, this is the reflective part of the video. I will be using the Gibbs reflective cycle on this part of the video. We had a curriculum meeting yesterday to discuss professional development, benchmark testing, plus several other things that I addressed during the introduction. The consultant was running a little bit late, so we started without her. When the consultant got there, we then began with the PowerPoint, kind of caught her up on everything, and then moved on from there. It was a very productive meeting. I enjoyed it a lot. I think we got a lot accomplished. We set up some things for the next meeting. It was very good. It would be nice if the consultant would have been there on time. We probably could have got more done, starting on time, starting with the PowerPoint at the beginning of the meeting, but because of circumstances, I thought the meeting was very productive. The meeting was about 3 hours, from 11:30 to 3:30. It started a little bit later. I would have liked to start on time, had everybody there on time and started without the consultant. We still had a few dragging in. We got a lot accomplished, but I think we could have got more accomplished had we been a little bit more organized. But the agenda was clearly stated. The agenda was put to us before the meeting started. We had PowerPoint to work with. We used a smart board for many of our discussions that we had up. There was some poster board up, and there was quite a few handouts. I believe I participated very well, gave some feedback, heard a lot of new information that I hadn't heard before, was able to process it and make suggestions. I thought that was very good. In conclusion, I believe that the meeting was very effective. I would like to be a part of more of these meetings. It was a good meeting, and there will be a follow-up meeting. I only recorded an hour of video, and then I recorded another 45 minutes of video for time constraints. So I didn't record the whole video, but I believe enough video was recorded for the purpose of this participating video. I enjoyed it again, and thank you very much.